I see culture as one way of enabling public sphere to happen. Cultural actions as a platforms for communication, for gathering people together, be it just to be there and to enjoy the art, to share this experience, to have this at the same time individual but also communal experience, which you don't have in many other places, and to provoke a critical thinking about where we are now and where we are heading for. Because we can notice everywhere, politicians today, they're not talking about the visions of the future. It's like, this is, the best, this is the thesis of Fukuyama, it's the end of the history, this is the best what we can get. And it's kind of the atmosphere in the society, especially in those on power, as one of the philosophers said, it's easiest for us to think of to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of the capitalism. And I think this has a lot to do with the declining of the public sphere and this connection between those in power and the citizens and a constant debate about our visions of future. And I think that culture can really give us some directions and some space, actually, that cultural actions, artistic actions, could provide a space for citizens to get together and to start, at least, to imagine and then to act towards this different vision of better societies. How is our city developed? Who is deciding about the city? In whose interest is the city going? What about our public spaces? There are some developers in the capital. They are taken from us. Why? On which reasoning? And really, then you have for example, the story with this initiative, Right to the City, where the different cultural associations, youth associations, and environmental associations are having a campaign and gathering of the citizens and protesting for years now on one particular spot in the city of Zagreb. In this particular case, yeah, the developer did win and corrupted politicians, but it opened up a new perspective for citizens to get involved, to discuss, to be there at the location, to protect what they think it's theirs. That we have a feeling that this community, our cities, it's ours. It's not just of those who are investing and building, or those who are ruling because they were elected. Because politicians often act not like civil servants, but like the owners of all these public resources. This is one of the examples. And I'm not saying that theater show or an exhibition should have this. Each of them should have this immediate or direct political mission. But I do think that that the people in arts sector cannot think that it's just. That it's just interesting to show yourself and your thinking about your work to the audience, and that you just have a consumers. Maybe you can do it with this like big blockbusters exhibitions and this kind of showing up thing, which are more into the cultural industry and this kind of thing. But if we are talking about the critical art, then this criticism should be also shared by those who participate. For example, I think the great example is this Belgrade group SKART, who are present here, who worked really with different people from different societies. They didn't become social workers. They are still artists. This is still art. They are not always, putting just the really poetical in many of their works. It's not that they're just declaring some position and so on, but I think what they do, it's for a huge. I mean, these are really small actions, and you cannot collect like billions of people at once, but you can build some specific communities and who are sharing these experiences, and then they could start to share even more than the experience. This is really important, and for me it's important to at least try to follow on a more practical level where the European cultural policies are going to, and I mean different states' cultural policies, and it's really important for me to follow all these informations, and because they scare me a bit, and I need to what is happening now, not only in culture, for example, now it's where everybody talks about Great Britain and how the public funds were cut, and it's not just about the culture but also the education, and I think this is the one of the most scary thing that happens, that we are cutting away studies of literature, studies of philosophy, all of this critical thinking studies, and that the educational system is trying just to produce a workforce in the interest, of course, of a big capital, because you know, philosophy, who needs that for production of the capital? But is it the profit the only thing we need in our society? Independent cultural sector, which are civil society organizations, actually emerged from the anti-war campaigns and these kind of organizations, because they were really critical against this direction at a symbolic level within the cultural sector and at a political level. You know, all the people involved, that they were like persona non grata from the side of politics then. This happened in Serbia, this happened in Bosnia, this happened in Croatia, and all these initiatives were actually born, you know, grassroots born, and they were supported by the Soros Foundation Open Society Institute, you know. And this background, it's still very important to have, because you can see in the independent sector that it has a much more critical position towards the cultural system itself, but towards society in general. Institutions are, you know, they feel so good where they are, and they are, you know, completely silent, you know. We got some money and some resources, some buildings from which are, you know, public, and we have a system that we share all these resources with all the independent organizations, so they can also have their home as I don't know, big theaters. Big theaters have this. This is just one example, but I think it's really important step in our system to kind of bridge the gap which the system produces. I'm optimistic for the culture in the future, with one condition, that culture operators and artists also become more and more active citizens, and to take care not just about their interest, because it is also in their interest to keep culture living, you know, but to engage more socially and even politically. It doesn't mean you have to produce art for social change, but you can produce whatever art you want to produce. You can gather people around it, but you have also this responsibility, because this is a power, because you can gather people. This is a social power, to use it as a platform to be critical and open, and to imagine better future, not just for arts and culture, but also arts and culture and society in general.